Coming up on Tech News Today, RIM partially comes to its senses. Is it enough? Sharp admits it's helping build iPhones, and why everybody's quitting at Facebook. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, August 2nd, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by Carbonite Online Backup. Automatic, continual, and unlimited backup for your computer files for only $59 a year. Try it free at Carbonite.com and use offer code TNT to get 2 bonus months with purchase. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting off each day with the top 10 stories in the news fuse. Are you tired of iPhone rumors?
Yes.
Sure.
I have the solution. An iPhone fact.
No way.
Yep. Reuters reports that Sharp's president, Takashi Okuda, told the press at a briefing in Tokyo, while trying to distract them from the horrible numbers of layoffs that they're going to do, that screens meant for a new Apple iPhone will start shipping in August. And in case you miss rumors, iLounge says it has 2 separate sources, probably familiar with the matter, I'm guessing, that say the 30-pin connector will shrink down to 8 pins on the next generation of iProducts.
I can't wait until it's -3.
I think it's
It's
gonna.
so small.
You will have to provide
You
pins.
don't
your own
think you
pins.
want this,
It's
but we know
BYO
it's
pins.
best for you.
Yeah.
You know those 955 million monthly active users that Facebook has? Well, the company estimates that 8.7% or 83.09 million accounts are fake. Yes, Facebook says back in March said that estimated 6% were either fakes or duplicates. So the number seems to be going up, but it doesn't necessarily mean that fakes are on the rise. Facebook's just counting things differently. Before, the company only listed duplicate and false users. Now it breaks it down to duplicate accounts, user misclassified accounts, and undesirables.
They don't have like the fake accounts that you use for Farm Bill. They should have that as
In any case, it's a bunch of junk. But
AT&T is buying Next Wave Wireless for $600 million. That's assuming the FCC is okay with that. Next Wave has a bunch of delicious spectrum and wireless communication services that AT&T wants to use to expand its LTE network over the next 3 years.
Well, it's the FTC that has to approve the
FTC?
the purchase. The FCC has to be okay with them using the spectrum.
I mix up my...
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that. Google Wallet announced late Wednesday that a new update to Google Wallet will allow Android phones with NFC chips to use credit cards from Visa, American Express, Discover, and, of course, MasterCard, which powers the PayPass system that supports the transactions at retailers. Google also is moving the encrypted secure bit from the phones to Google services. Probably Department of Commerce, actually, not FTC, now that I think about it.
speaking of commerce, you know what Nokia wants you to have more of? Daily deals. Yeah, that's right. Lumia phones will show offers from Groupon on their maps in a software update. The Groupon Now offers will be indicated by a little green G icon to encourage users to visit participating retailers. The new feature will arrive outside the U.S. when Nokia launches Windows 8 phones, which is expected along with the launch of Windows 8 on October 26th.
That will make Nokia the Wear company. Good for you guys.
Yeah, there you go.
You guys sick of patent lawsuits from trolls?
No. Well,
well,
yeah, actually,
well, sorry. Well,
right.
that might be coming to an end, Tom.
Oh.
A new bill introduced in the House of Representatives could allow a court to force a plaintiff to pay the defendant's legal bills if the court finds that the plaintiff did not have a reasonable likelihood of succeeding. It's called the Saving High-Tech Innovators from Egregious Legal Disputes Act. If you're following along the letters, it's the SHIELD Act. Really nice name there. And it's limited to patents related to software and hardware.
Apple has asked Judge Lucy Koh to declare it the winner, sort of, in its patent lawsuit against Samsung, stating that litigation is apparently part of Samsung's litigation strategy. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. I don't think that's the right quote. But screwing up is apparently part of Samsung's litigation strategy. Apple asked Judge Koh to rule in its favor on the claim that Samsung is illegally using Apple design patents.
I don't see anything wrong with that quote.
And,
You have a litigation strategy, and litigation is a big part of that.
basically, Apple's mad that Samsung leaked some stuff out, and they're asking the judge to just say, you know what, we win, all of our patents are valid because they leaked stuff.
U.S. regulators have proposed a revised rule to protect children's privacy online. The FTC would make websites, mobile apps, and data brokers all responsible for data collected about children by third parties like data brokers, strengthening a proposed update of its children's online privacy protection rule that it had released last September. Now, this all makes perfect sense, but previously the rule didn't actually spell out who exactly was responsible for data collection. They've made that more clear, or are trying to.
Litigation misconduct is apparently part of Samsung's litigation strategy.
Oh, so there's that too.
Illinois has joined Maryland as the second state in the United States to make it illegal for employees or job applicants to disclose passwords for social networking sites. Reports circulated in March that some employers may have been pressuring job applicants to allow them into sites like Facebook. Washington, Delaware, and New Jersey are considering similar laws.
Samsung's got a message. Listen up, mobile flash memory makers. Amateur hour is over. Samsung introduced its Pro Class 1500 flash memory, which handles 1500 IOPS when writing data. IOPS means inputs, outputs, operations per second. Read speeds are about 4 times faster than anything Samsung has tested. If you can't wrap your head around IOPS, how about megabytes per second? Because that's how I think. 140 megabytes per second read speed and 50 megabytes per second for writes. That's freaking fast.
That makes me drool a little. This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Carbonite Online Backup. Ask yourself this question and be honest. Are your computer files backed up right now? Are they backed up in a place that if a tornado struck or a disaster happened to your location, they'd still be safe in the cloud? You want them backed up automatically and continually, and to really be protected, you need online backup from somebody like Carbonite. With Carbonite, your files are automatically and continually backed up. They're safely stored off-site. And after you have a computer disaster, which it's almost inevitable, it's going to happen at some point in your life, it's easy to restore your files. Plus, you can access your backed up files privately on any computer or on your smartphone or iPad with a free app. Unlimited backup for your PC or Mac is only $59 a year. Try it for free, though. You don't have to pay a cent. Go to carbonite.com, enter our offer code TNT, and you'll get 2 bonus months free if you decide to buy. Again, that offer code TNT. Be sure to sign up for the free trial from the homepage to get the 2 months free. Don't even have to give them a credit card, so no reason not to try it. Carbonite.com, offer code TNT. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to dig a little deeper into the stories, Mr. Danny Sullivan, editor-in-chief at Search Engine Land. Great to have you back on the show, Danny.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We got some good stuff to dig in today, starting with RIM showing a little flash of sense, maybe. Tell us about this, Iyaz.
Yeah, Thorsten Hines was talking to The Telegraph, and you might see headlines everywhere screaming, BlackBerry's going to license their OS. That's not necessarily true. What the quote is, to deliver a BlackBerry 10, we may need to look at licensing it to someone who can do this at a way better cost proposition than I can do it. There's different options we could do that we're currently investigating. And he says it's early going these days, so he can't give out details. So people are speculating that Sony, Samsung, any of these manufacturers could be there. But RIM looking like they're going to make effectively a reference design for their hardware that other people can copy. Danny, what do you think of the idea of RIM becoming like a reference and other companies backing them up?
Well, I don't want to get a bunch of BlackBerry people coming after me, but thanks for putting me out on the spot.
They're used to it on the show. Don't worry.
I don't really see the momentum with the platform. Now, I don't use it. I don't know people who use it. I live in the iPhone and the Android and a tiny, tiny bit of the Windows Phone world. But those 3 alone, the reason I have found them compelling is because of the back-end connections that they all have all had, that they connect me with my calendar, they connect me with my email, they connect me with all these other services. increasingly, they're connecting me with my content that I have out there. And it doesn't seem like they're going to have all that to offer up. I mean, to me, I suspect that their biggest hope is really going to be that someone like Samsung decides, Windows Phone ain't going to make it, and we're kind of nervous about Google. So, yeah, let's go RIM.
I think that actually RIM's proposition is that we do connect you with your calendar and your email and all of that in a certain segment, right? If you're an Outlook user in the enterprise, if you want to use BlackBerry Messenger, all of that sort of stuff. It's just a matter of how many of those people they can keep using those services until BlackBerry 10 comes out next year. if they can, I think this is kind of a good half step. I think they should go further and just say, we're going to license those services so that you can use them on Android phones, so that somebody like Danny Sullivan will actually say, hey, maybe I'll investigate those BlackBerry services. But as a tentative step towards that, I think allowing other manufacturers to use BlackBerry 10 only makes sense.
In the mobile phone world, I'm really curious as to which manufacturers would think, okay, I'm going to get on board with BlackBerry 10. I mean, Samsung seems like they go with anything. They don't really care. They just want to make as many phones as possible. As long as the hardware works and the software works, what's the difference to them? But like, should like a company like HTC get involved with this, because they're kind of figuring out what they're doing? I mean, there's that rumors of Facebook phone, but is BlackBerry 10 a viable operating system for any manufacturer? I
mean, I think that there's still, even though I know BlackBerry is very much on the decline and they have a lot of competition, particularly in the enterprise. Apple just bought a security company, I guess there's a sense of, if you have a BlackBerry phone in your lineup, and some people want BlackBerry phones, even if it's not the most popular phone, you keep a certain segment of the consumer who likes the business side of things happy. You sell some phones, and if you're Samsung, why not? I just think by the time BlackBerry 10 is available, and we're talking about next year, a lot of things are going to happen between now and then. And I just don't think that BlackBerry, even right now, I think people are losing faith that it is actually the right solution for a more secure corporate network.
It's strange. If you look at the old mobile phones, a lot of these devices used to have, they were going to be BlackBerry killers. They had that screen and that QWERTY keyboard. You'd look at the Moto Q, a whole bunch of these devices that aimed to take on BlackBerry back then. I don't know if it's too late for BlackBerry to get back into this game, because the form factor of phones have changed so much. The big thing BlackBerry offered was their hardware. So for their software to be this compelling product, I don't know if that's enough. I think their hardware is really where they should be playing to.
I think that if somebody like HTC were to make a BlackBerry phone, and you went into the store and it said, here's a BlackBerry phone, and it looked reasonably like a BlackBerry and it had the BlackBerry operating system on it, the fact that HTC made it wouldn't mean anything to the customer if they liked the phone.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Didn't HP try that with the iPod? And that
many
didn't
people
work.
would know the difference.
Yeah, but there's a difference between an HP iPod and a phone, right? I mean, we definitely buy phones. Up till now, we were buying phones based on the carrier a lot of times in the United States. It was a Verizon phone. We didn't really know that Samsung made it. That's sort of new. So the idea that, hey, it's got the BlackBerry branding on it, it's got the BlackBerry operating system on it, that may be all we need to know. I just don't know if the BlackBerry operating system is going to come in time to impress enough people to get them to switch over anyway.
Right. Too little, too late.
We talked about that AT&T proposal to buy NextWave. NextWave is a spectrum holder. And so Iyaz, you were right. The FCC has to approve that spectrum transfer part of the acquisition. I think the FTC or the DOJ may weigh in on the actual sale part of the transition. But here's why AT&T wants NextWave. AT&T wants to get more spectrum. Now, NextWave holds advanced wireless spectrum, which is available to use for mobile phones right now. And they also hold something called WCS, Wireless Communications Service, in the 2.3 gigahertz bandwidth. That is not available right now to be used, but it could be. And this is a key point in opening up some new spectrum for carriers to use. AT&T recently joined Sirius XM in petitioning the FCC to allow that WCS spectrum to be used for mobile service, specifically LTE. WCS is currently restricted because it is sandwiched around satellite radio. Satellite digital audio radio service lives in between two halves of the WCS frequency. So Sirius XM for a long time has been saying, no, you can't put anything in that spectrum. It's kind of like light squared and GPS. It's going to cause interference. AT&T got together with SiriusXM, did some serious negotiating, and got them to agree to allow AT&T to provide a 5 megahertz dead zone on either side of the satellite radio frequencies. So
there shouldn't be interference.
Essentially,
yeah,
exactly. The C and the D blocks will have nothing in them. They will not be allowed to be used for mobile communications. SiriusXM, on their part, has agreed to remove power restrictions from the A and the B blocks, which are farther away. And so the only obstacle to this being approved by the FCC, because this was proposed last month, was a company called NextWave, who held the WCS spectrum. They were going to have to get NextWave to agree, and NextWave wasn't sure they wanted to agree to this. They wanted to sell that spectrum to a satellite radio operator. But if AT&T buys NextWave, then that objection obviously goes away, and it's up to them convincing the FCC to allow the agreement, which they have the major satellite radio broadcaster in North America on board. AT&T says that they would take them about 3 years to deploy LTE on WCS.
Well, purchasing a company is one way to get them to agree to anything you want, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a good idea for AT&T. Their LTE network is not as strong as Verizon right now. Verizon has got so much coverage area. They actually started covering Petaluma recently, which I'm like surprised by. They haven't announced it at all, but it is nearby. And they need to play catch up. And if it requires picking up smaller companies and then working deals out with satellite companies like Sirius XM, I mean, this is what they have to do.
And one of the objections AT&T had, or one of the complaints, I should say, that AT&T had when the T-Mobile acquisition was turned down is that there was no spectrum to get. This has forced them to be creative. And in fact, what they're doing, the end result is opening up spectrum, if they can get the FCC to sign off on this, that would not have been used for mobile communications otherwise.
Is it the kind of spectrum that other companies would be able to buy portions of?
I don't know. That's a very interesting question because the A and the B blocks that are going to remain open are different regional licenses. They're what are called metro licenses than the C and the D blocks, which are regional licenses, which actually are not going to be allowed to be used for this. So, and I think there's only 2 licensors per the spectrum. I don't know how the FCC breaks up those licensors.
Yeah.
If
Because I
there's
would
only
think
2
that that's what the
licensors,
FCC would come back and say, sure, we'll
Yeah.
play along, but you can't just have it all to yourself.
and that, yeah, they're going to maybe put some open access requirements on it. They'll say you can be the sole licensor of the A and B blocks, but you have to allow others to buy in to access. Danny, what do you make of this? I mean, with the spectrum crunch is something people bandy about. As a consumer, what do we need?
Well, I suppose as a consumer, what we need more is just rate plans that make a lot more sense. I mean, it's nice if they get the more spectrum and that we have more coverage or whatever that comes into it. But, you know, in my personal life, I'm much more struggling with the fact that I've got multiple phones or I've got multiple people in my family, and I'm still waiting for these family plans to come in where I can share all the data they want me to be consuming. And they haven't arrived, and they still don't look that interesting to me when I get there. I've been kind of going through the numbers, and I keep thinking, now, why do I want to sign up for this, or why do I want to sign up for that? But, you know, more spectrum would be great. It'd certainly be nice if you could use AT&T in more places. Although I have to say, I have both AT&T and I have both Verizon, you know, LTE phones, and I've been impressed a number of times the AT&T service is actually there, and sometimes not just there, but seems to be beating Verizon. We went on a trip to the Southwest, and there were a number of times when we're in the middle of nowhere, and the AT&T signal was the one that was being better for me than the Verizon one. Although, you know, I was stepping down to 3G at those points, or the dreaded E.
I think what AT&T would say is, if we get more spectrum, then the costs go down because, you know, we can allow more people on the network. I don't know if I'd buy that, but that's what they're going to say.
Costs are never going down.
Their costs go down. Your costs might stay the same.
Yeah, our costs aren't going down. We just might have better speeds overall because as more people get on LTE, our speeds will go down unless they keep building out their infrastructure. I mean, that's where I guess we win a little bit.
Sarah, I think you hit on the most hopeful part of this is if the FCC says, all right, you've got Sirius to agree to this, so you're going to avoid the light squared problem with GPS, but we're going to make you agree to the same open access provisions as Verizon. If you want to do this, AT&T might be willing to bite the bullet. They won't want to do it, but they want the spectrum so bad. There's a fight going on between Google Plus and Facebook.
You know, every morning I wake up and I think, I'm not going to talk about Facebook's IPO or weird numbers or ad revenue, and then I just get sucked right back in. Latest twist on this story actually comes from a blog post that was written by a gentleman named Dalton Caldwell, who is running a service called app.net. You may formerly remember him as the creator of Pick Please. He's done a lot of stuff, and he's been pretty outspoken in the community. He says, again, in a blog post on his personal website, daltoncaldwell.com, explains a meeting that he had with Facebook executives back in June, on June 13th. He doesn't name any of them specifically, but said one was the VP of Engineering and Products, one was the VP of Partnerships, one was the VP of Corporate and Business Development, a Director of Developer Relations, Open Graph. So high-up executives. By the way, this blog post that he writes is an open letter to Mark Zuckerberg, who was not in the meeting, but Mr. Caldwell figures these are all people high up at the company who say, all right, you've got this service app.net that is kind of not going to work for us because we just rolled out our App Center. And because of new ad units that we're building, we're hoping to generate a lot of money, up to $1 billion per year in ad rev. He says, quote, the execs in the room made it clear that the success of my product would be an impediment to your ad revenue, they're talking to him, financial goals, and thus they offered me the chance to be acquired. And he said they made it sound like it was a noble and kind move on their part. What he says is, you're saying that you'll acqui-hire me, but it's actually not a good thing. What you want is to shut my service down. So you're going to pay me money to come work for Facebook, and in exchange, I won't keep building out something that you are afraid of. It's like, on a very, very extreme scale of this, people say this is like hush money. We give you money to stop competing with us because now...
It reminds me of hiring hackers because you want them to stop attacking your network.
And in many ways, this is a good thing. I mean, he could be in the position where he's like, I don't know if I can compete with Facebook. I'd like to work there. Being acqui-hired is not always a bad thing, and this is something that Facebook is known for. They do this with a lot of companies. They buy teams. The team starts working at Facebook. That original product goes away. Beluga comes to mind. Beluga kind of became Facebook Messenger, so in theory it lives on, but that original product does go away. Sparrow Mail and Google is also another kind of an acqui-hire type of a situation. He says, I was using the Facebook platform on a new iOS app and service that I'm building, and basically, because of Facebook's practices, and he also throws Twitter under the bus too, says, I'm not going to create anything on a platform when people act this way. I think, part of his beef with Twitter, I don't know if it's a personal one or not, is that Twitter's starting to pull APIs from third-party services and scaring a lot of people. So that's what's going on with Dalton Caldwell, and it's got a lot of attention. Coincidentally, not really, actually, Vic Kundotra on Google+.
Coincidentally on purpose.
Well, at first it seemed like a coincidence, except that he actually links to Dalton Caldwell's blog post. So clearly this was a dig at Facebook. He posted on G+ this morning, when we open an API, he's talking about Google, we want developers to feel confident that the innovations they build are going to be long-lasting. Releasing an API and then later changing the rules of the game isn't fun for anyone, especially developers who spent their lives energies building on the platform. I'm not interested in screwing over developers. That's at the point that he linked to Caldwell's post.
I for one, don't hate people. I'm a nice guy.
We at Google don't want to be evil, like Facebook.
Like them, points at Facebook.
Now, Google doesn't actually offer an open API to all, so you could say, well, all right, that's great talk, Google, but open it up. Google says it's not because we don't want to. We're trying to be careful of how we roll this out. We're trying to do things differently.
We're
we see where
screwing
Facebook
over
is messing
developers
up.
for a good reason.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's very interesting to have this kind of, and again, this is one person's account of what happened. Facebook has not issued any sort of a official statement saying this meeting didn't happen this way, or here's the facts from our side of the story. So it's really just one account of what went down. And an account of someone saying, I don't want to be acqui-hired, and this whole thing is very insulting to me, and I'm going to take this meeting public. Whereas doesn't always happen that way. But it does show that Facebook is interested in not letting competitors thrive if those competitors can come work for Facebook.
Danny, what do you think of this story?
Anyone?
He should ask for $1 billion.
Yeah, really.
That would have taken care of it. Well, I think the most amusing thing is Google coming in saying, well, it's been over a year since we've had Google Plus, and, when we eventually get our API, it'll be really nice to everybody. It's like, okay, why don't you just get the API out, I don't know, 2 months after you launched? And why are we still waiting? I mean, really, you want to go there? Like, your API is going to be great when you're this far behind and still kind of rolling it out for people to actually use. But we'll see. It'll be interesting. I'm sure at some point somebody will dig up the times that I think Google's API has changed and disturbed developers. And I don't know, there were map charges and various other things. This kind of seems like par for the course of companies. And I remember when Twitter had started changing around their API and all the developers started freaking out, and that just seems to be the way that goes. If you're a developer, you're hoping that for the best, you're hoping that you're building something that is so compelling that you actually do get purchased, or that you're going to stand alone. But being purchased gives you that kind of security. So I don't know. I suppose we'll have the debate going on back and forth, and we'll have the different sides pick up with it from there. But I don't know that it's going to change any of the fundamentals. I don't think Facebook's suddenly going to get all coward and go, "You're right. We've been unfair to our developers. We're going to go through and do a much better job of ensuring that they can do whatever they want on our platform and whatever."
Business-wise, Facebook is building quite a lousy reputation. I mean, advertisers were really annoyed that Facebook they don't coddle advertisers the way other businesses do. And if Facebook's coming in with a lot of swagger when it comes to their executives going, you know what, we could just buy you instead of crushing you. Would you like to come over? I mean, it seems like they're just starting off to be a public company, real company is a way to put it, I guess. And it's a growing pains. I'm pretty sure if enough of these stories come out, you're going to see, Facebook is a little different.
I don't think it's growing pains. They've been a real company for a long time. Just because they IPO'd doesn't make them any more or less of a real company. I think Facebook's arrogant.
Makes people more critical, really.
Yeah, I think Facebook thinks that they are on top of the world and they can't be touched. And this IPO stock market drop is just a distraction. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here. We're going to win. That may be to their benefit because they won't get distracted and lose their confidence. But on the other hand, it is causing a series of these sorts of mishaps where public perception and even perception in the developer community is starting to change. I wonder if Dalton Caldwell has risked more here than Facebook, though.
I get a nice job over at Google.
Yeah, that's true. I guess.
Or build some amazing service with app.net on some open platform that has nothing to do with Facebook and really give them a run for their money. I mean, that's the thing I think that Facebook risks the most, ad rev aside, is you get enough people who say, I refuse to work with you. Not just people who say, I don't want to download an app where I can only use Facebook Connect, but actually developers who are like, no, I'm going to leave you out of this whole thing. That's really what could be scary for Facebook, not tomorrow, but in a year or two.
And I think Google just looked at a chance to jump on something and stick it to Facebook, but I'm not sure they really have a compelling argument here when you don't have an open API to offer people. You really can't say how they treat developers. Let's move on to Aereo celebrating their court victory, their recent court victory, with a sale.
They announced Aereo is that company that takes over-the-air transmissions and puts them online. You rent out an antenna, and they give you a DVR. And the thing was, what is it going to cost? Well, Aereo announced its plans, and they're pretty interesting. There's a free for a continuous hour with no DVR functionality. If you want to just try it out, you can try it for free. Day passes, $1. So if you want to watch like football or the Oscars or something, you could just buy it for $1 for that one day. You get 3 hours of DVR functionality. Monthly, there's an $8 fee, 20 hours of DVR. There's a $12 monthly as well, 40 hours of DVR. If you want to save some bucks, $80 for 40 hours of the DVR. So it's a really interesting set of plans because Aereo doesn't have to pay the broadcasters at all. They're just taking stuff over the air and they're putting it out, and the individual is renting it out. There's a whole
Theoretically, the broadcasters get paid because you see their ads.
Right. Theoretically, it's no different than an antenna being installed, and so that's.
Although the broadcasters say Nielsen doesn't count you if you're watching over Aereo.
There's no way that the litigation is over for Aereo to any which way. I mean, it's the fact is I think the big court victory was they weren't stopped from continuing their service.
They weren't enjoined.
Enjoined.
Enjoined, is that the way? Yeah,
I believe so. They weren't stopped from actually putting out their service. I'm really excited. I'm hoping these plans I want to see Aereo grow, and I'm thinking with this kind of structure, they're going to earn a lot of money, and on top of that, there are incentives. If you refer a friend, you get some extra time. You can have up to 3 months free by referring friends. Tommy, I know you've been thinking about Aereo for a long time. I know Frame Rate, you guys talk about this. What do you think of these plans?
I think this is brilliant. I think it's a great way to engender interest, and I hope they keep it. I hope they keep a free 1 hour a day, or at least that $1 day pass. I mean, that's really compelling to kind of get me to sample the service because I want to watch a particular show or a particular event. Maybe it's one time only. You don't need more than 3 hours of DVR on one day. I mean, that's just so you can pause and rewind and things like that. I think Aereo really knows what they're doing, and they're really smart. It remains to be seen if they'll win in court. I think they have a very good case. And I think they're poised to shake up the industry. I do think that if Barry Diller is smart, because he's backing Aereo, that he will go to Nielsen next and say, hey, let me help you measure the people who use Aereo. I can plug you into my database. I can give you exactly what you're wanting. I can give you much more fine-grained detail than you could get by doing your surveys. Because that pretty much overcomes the major objections that the broadcasters have. They're trying to prove harm from this service by saying when someone watches over Aereo, it's different than when they watch it free over the air because they don't get counted in the Nielsen ratings, and therefore it's stealing our money.
It's different because I have to pay Aereo $1 rather than just the flat fee I paid for my antenna.
And the key here is that it's, and why they're starting this in New York City, is an antenna doesn't work for a lot of people, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
This is a service for them.
Absolutely. Or for whatever reason, you can't figure out how to make an antenna not look ugly.
Yeah.
I had a really ugly one until I found a better one recently. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of like rabbit ears. That doesn't
If you don't
want to
mess with it,
yeah, exactly. And $1 here and there is really reasonable.
Danny, do you ever see yourself paying for this service if it rolled out in your area?
Possibly. I mean, we have bad reception here, which is why we've gone with DirecTV, or most people have cable. But I go for that initially for the better reception, but I also go for it because I want HBO and Showtime. So if they're not going to offer this, I wouldn't necessarily want to double up, right? I want those other services, and I can't get those other services online unless I have a subscription through a cable provider or whatever. And that might be one of the killer things too, is if they can somehow put together a package where you could get, or if anybody can make it possible, where you can get one of the pay channels online and pick it out in that way. But otherwise, for me, it's not that compelling. I just don't. I've got live television on the thing called television, so it works.
Yeah, I think the broadcasters are even overreacting to how much damage this will do. They just want to crush it right at the beginning because they're worried about exactly what you're saying, that they make a deal with an HBO or a Showtime, and it becomes a lot more compelling.
Well, and then, but I mean, the big concern here really is, I mean, wow. So anybody can record anything off the air and basically resell it as long as it's sent to somebody as their personal DVR or whatever. I mean, that's kind of what you use something like a Hulu for, or something like a Netflix for, because great, I'll take one of these things and I'll set up and I'll start recording the series that I want and let it store there for ages or however long I'm allowed to do it. And it's very upsetting. And I can see that I think I saw another article where now they're starting to try to cut some deals or put some things together, because perhaps the last thing they want this to do is actually be legislated now, or I'm sorry, to be litigated now and go completely and clearly in Aereo's favor, because then anybody can do this.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Which would be nice, but
yeah. And if anybody doesn't realize, the way Aereo is defending their use of this is that they have individual micro antennas for every single person. So they're not taking one antenna and rebroadcasting it over the internet. Their legal argument is we are renting an antenna and the internet is just a big long extension cord. And so it's a very clever defense.
What if the service takes off? I mean, are we going to have like Aereo towns where the little antennas are just stacked across fields for the millions of consumers getting their live TV?
I don't know if you need fields.
Like the cell phone towers. I mean, they're pretty small. I mean, what I'm most intrigued by is the flexibility in the plans. You can't just say, okay, I'm not paying for cable this month. I'm not going to need it now. And then, reinstall it. There's an installation fee. We got to turn the service back on. We need to have a technician come over. This is on the internet. It's like, okay, I'm going to change my plan. I want a one-day pass today. I'm going to see, okay, maybe I want to try this for a while. Maybe I'll go monthly. Maybe I can stop, because you can change your plans anytime. Like Netflix, you can swap them out. It's a flexibility you just don't have with the old structures.
Whether it's Aereo or TV Anywhere or anything, this is where it's going, though. Go ahead, Danny.
The other thing that's going to be interesting is, so if I can rent an antenna, and that's perfectly fine. If I want to rent an antenna in a city that has a blackout of a sporting event, can I do that?
Right.
Because I don't want to go to it there, and that starts tipping up some things. And then can get to the further extension where, like what's happening right now. I mean, it's great. I fired up, I think it was, I can't remember the name of it, I'll have to look it up, but a VPN service so that I can start pulling in stuff off of the UK.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, and it's nice. So can I rent, I'm effectively renting somebody else's antenna. They don't have a separate antenna that's going up with it from there. But, it starts to batter away at this idea that, no, you can only have your television content in the way that we decide it's going to be segmented based on the way we figured out we should license it out and all this sort of stuff there. I mean, the borders become more absurd.
And Aereo's trying to be a very good citizen and saying, you can only watch this if you're in New York City. You can only watch the New York City channels. But if they were to win in court, the next company to try this might not be such a good citizen about it. Let's look at some tablet market numbers. It's time for the numbers. Numbers.
Number time. We're gonna go by the numbers. All right. So this is another bunch of numbers that at first is gonna seem like same old story. Numbers are out from IDC, International Data Corporation. They do a lot of data surveys. Yeah, this one is on worldwide tablet shipments, which totaled 25 million. Of course, the majority of those tablets shipped was from Apple with 17 plus million iPads, which is about 68% of the market share. Now, obviously, 2012 is going to be a much different story the next time the IDC puts numbers from the Nexus 7, the new Kindle Fire, if and when that ends up happening.
Possibly an iPad mini.
Yeah, all of the Windows tablets that will be flooding the market come October. So this is, again, sort of, I think, the golden age of the iPad being as dominant as it is. However, IDC says that they think the increased competition will possibly baffle consumers enough to feel like they're faced with too many options and revert back to the brand that they know, which is Apple. Now, of course, people who are watching this show will find that all very insulting.
Yeah, right.
Because you know better than to just go with the first company that made a successful tablet. But consumers as a whole, particularly if you think about an upcoming holiday season where it's like there's 5 or 6 tablets on the market that people say are really good, they're all running commercials, they're kind of all around the same price. Well, maybe you just want to go with that market leader, which would, in this case, possibly be Apple. Yeah. Which one? And which one does everyone else have?
Right.
I want that one so that I can talk to my friend at work about the apps that they downloaded recently. So Bob O'Donnell, the IDC Vice President for Clients and Displays, says there's a real risk that people have too many options when it comes to the holiday season, and differences between Amazon and Google versions of Android, Windows 8 and Windows RT, many might just default to what they consider the market leader, Apple, or choose to remain on the sidelines for another cycle, which doesn't help anybody's numbers, but certainly doesn't cut into Apple's market share. What do you guys think? I think that there's some truth to this.
I don't know if it'll be that different from the way cell phones are. I mean, there are lots of different phones, and what the companies decided after the long run was, let's take our lines and try to consolidate them down because we want to promote one product. Each company has this kind of thing going right now. Apple has its iPhone, Samsung has its Galaxy line, HTC we went with one. I think there will be a saturation, right? We have PCs that are tablets and tablets that aren't PCs, and however you want to go into that. I think for the companies to make money, they're going to have to just figure out what's the one thing they want to promote. I don't know if it's going to be like the cell phone model or everybody's got a different car. We don't necessarily bond over what do you have going in your car? Do you have air conditioning? It's like it just might be this device that people have, and it doesn't really matter if everyone has the same one, as long as they can have the same functionality. Do you have Facebook? I have Facebook. Do you have Twitter? I have Twitter. I think it's really the services that make these devices interesting because by themselves, they're just computers.
Danny, what do you think? Are consumers going to be at risk of being confused by all these tablets?
I don't know. I mean, I think that the tablets we're talking about are really going to come down for the holiday shopping season to probably 3 or 4. The new iPad. Well, where are we at now? It's the new iPad, the iPad Mini, if it really does come out. Whatever's going to be the new Amazon tablet, the Fire 2 or whatnot, and the Nexus 7. There'll be some of these other tablets that are out there, but most of them have been at these weird price points, or they just haven't been compelling enough. The Android tablets really haven't been that compelling. I never quite get who thought they wanted to buy one of them. I mean, they're there, but and maybe Samsung will really push one of its other tablets at a better price point. But the bigger Android tablets for the same price just really haven't seemed to be competitive with the iPad. So they just kind of seem to have been ruled out, in my view. But the Nexus 7 it's occupying this small kind of unique little niche that's there. It's working better than the Kindle Fire. So when we get into it, I don't think there's actually that many options. And then when you look at the options that are out there, I think people are going to start going down the list of, first of all, how much can I afford to pay, right? Or how much do I want to pay? And then it's going to be a question of if you're really on a budget, Kindle Fire or Nexus 7. It's not that hard, depending on what happens with the iPad Mini. If we get the iPad Mini, and to me, the most important thing really in this is just what does Apple do? Because if they don't roll out an iPad mini, then it suddenly becomes perhaps a 2-tablet shopping world, I think, where we're looking at the Nexus 7 and we're looking at the iPad. If they bring it out, well, it certainly makes life for Google a lot harder, because then they don't have the things that make the Nexus 7 unique. And the things that make the Nexus 7 unique aren't, hey, great content from Google. Hey, I can get all my Google stuff. I can do all these Google things. It's really, I think, the size and the price combination.
I think you're right. I think it is simpler than maybe IDC is making it sound. And I'd count the Microsoft Surface in there, because when you're looking at size, you're going to say, oh, the 10-inch tablets, that's the iPad and the Surface. Microsoft's going to make a huge marketing push for this. And a lot of people say, I'm familiar with Microsoft. I use Windows at home. Now I can use Windows on a tablet. I'm going to look at that. Or if they don't want a 10-inch, you're right. They're going to be looking at the Kindle Fire, maybe the Barnes & Noble Nook, the Nexus 7. And again, if Apple comes out with a mini, that's going to be in there as well. And we'll have to see what kind of price point that's at, because like you're right. If the Fire and the Nexus 7 and the mini are all $199, then it comes down to features and what people like the most. I don't think that IDC is right that people will be as confused, but I do think this is an interesting discussion, because it helps us clarify what we're going to have to choose from, and I think who the leaders are going to be. I think that's really smart. Let's finish up with Oculus Rift. We saw this at CES. It's a head-mounted display, you know, VR. We've been thinking about this since the 90s. We're going to put that goggles on and disappear into a virtual world. It was launched on Kickstarter yesterday with a goal of $250,000. They passed that very quickly, and they're nearing $1 million today, partly because they say not only is this thing going to have no lag, so there's going to be no latency. When you turn left, there's not going to be this weird drag as the image tries to catch up with you. But we've got people on board to make games. John Carmack of id Software has already said, we will make Doom 3 BFG the first game compatible with this headset. Cliff Blazinski at Epic Games, they're the ones with the Unreal Engine, on board for this. And it's going to be compatible with the Unreal Engine. You got other big names in here. The Unity CEO Dave Helgeson's going to be compatible with the Unity engine. Gabe Newell from Valve likes it. Gaikai's on board with it. The other thing that they have here is 1280 by 800 resolution with a 110-degree diagonal field. So you've got, what is that, 640 by 400 in each eye, and a very wide range. You're not going to see the border of this thing in your peripheral vision all the time. They're only selling development kits right now. If you donate $300, you get a development kit, because they're trying to get people to make the games for this before they come out with the consumer version. Danny, I mean, we've seen the promise of virtual reality for decades now. Do you think this looks like somebody may have finally cracked it?
No.
No. Don't say that. I'm so excited about this.
You know what? I mean, it was like, I think it was like 96 or 95 back when I was a reporter. We did this huge blowout on a company in virtual reality, and it's going to be here. And it's like audio, it's like video conferencing or whatever. That's all going to happen. And I know we have FaceTime. I know people are using it or whatever, but we still don't pick up our phones and talk to people directly. We still don't do a lot of these things that everybody's like, this is a great idea. Heaven help me, why we still have to have 3D come back, right? I mean, I don't want it, don't need it, and it doesn't seem to work that much. And I feel like 20 years from now, people are going to look back at us wearing all the glasses, still going, oh, what were they thinking? In the way that we look at people in the 1950 theaters doing that.
Yeah, so, with the red and blue glasses.
Yeah, you look at them, you go, oh, look at what they're, and it's like, yeah, we're doing the same thing. So, hey, maybe it'll work. Maybe this will finally come through or whatever, but maybe they've got the great technology that'll finally make it happen. You know, it always looks great on Kickstarter, I suppose, but I kind of think it's going to come and go.
I want to believe this is going to work, and we're going to see some
like
really
Mulder.
Yeah, that's what it should be. I should have like a virtual boy underneath this. I want to believe. I want this to work. I actually rented a virtual boy back in the day to try it out. I'm like, this is really cool. But you had to stay in this position, and you were stuck, and I'm like, it wasn't very. It was not a great idea. If Oculus works the way they say it's going to, and if they get the developers on there, I would love to see something like this take off. I mean, just for air travel alone, That's what I would like. I mean, there's certain things out there.
Sit on the plane.
There are Vuzix products out
Play
there.
Flight Simulator.
Do similar ththings, but this thing looks light. It could have a lot of applications that we're not even thinking about yet beyond gaming. I'm just really, I hope it works, but I don't really think it's gonna.
All right, me and Iyaz are on one side, Daddy's on the other. Sarah, which side are you on?
I mean, I kind of have to side with Danny where I say I've just heard about this virtual reality story for a long time, and it's never that cool. It doesn't seem to catch on. Then again, before just a couple of years ago, before the Wii, and certainly before the Kinect, I also thought that motion-controlled gaming sounded pretty silly too. Nothing really seemed to work that well. The offerings were limited, and they still are, but they've made leaps and strides. And now there are actually games that are really, really fun to play that way, and even work better in some cases. So, I want it to work, and I think you can be a pessimist and say it's never worked, so it never will. But we have seen we've seen a lot of strides in gaming. So why not? You're gonna look silly, but.
I don't think any of these people are worried about it. You've got Gabe Newell, Cliffy B's on board. It's big names, skeptical names. People have seen a lot. Looking at them.
Glasses are hot. You can put them on and jump out of Zeppelins. So it's going to be...
That's the new thing.
That's the whole new thing. We're going to have a stream of glasses that are going to be coming out.
Palmer Lucky's going to have to jump out of a Zeppelin with these things on, and then we'll all believe.
Virtually. It'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then he goes, aha, it was all virtual.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the randomizer. We actually have a couple of Google Street View stories in the randomizer today. First of all, this is going to be weird, but this is actually the less impressive one in some ways. The Kennedy Space Center is celebrating its 50th birthday, and Google has added the launch facilities of the Space Shuttle to Street View service. 6,000 panoramic views, the largest special collection of Street View imagery yet. And if you're a shuttle fan, which I kind of am, it's really fun to just walk around in the control center, walk into the hangars, see the space shuttle sitting there. Kind of sad because it's never going to fly again, but very, very cool stuff there. But then there's also a story out about Google Street View's unofficial ASCII treatment from Tihan and Lax Labs, where it actually takes Google Street View and turns it into ASCII art on the fly.
And it's super fast. I mean, you can put in any location. I was looking at TWiT via Street View, and it just loads really quickly. It's so much less laggy than actual Street View, at least in my opinion. I would suggest if you want to see it looking like pictures, you can step about 5 feet.
And just as helpful.
Well, if you step 5 feet away, it looks like a real image, but it can be all in green if you wanted it in that Matrix style. But that's a mode. It's not by default. I like the color mode myself.
Do you find these compelling offerings? Which one do you like, Danny?
Well, the ASCII thing certainly sounds cool.
It is cool.
The Kennedy Space Center thing, I think, will be neat for it as well. To me, the things that Google rolls out, they always seem to be these kind of neat one-time things, but then they all come together to build up into this sort of bigger library. I mean, it's like you go and you look, you're like, okay, why do I need to go there again? And the whole Street View thing itself, when you come back to it, it tends not to be one of those, aha, I need to use the service because it has it. But then when you think about, I do want to look at a location, or I do want to see something in a particular place, that's when it starts to be compelling. You come back, oh yeah, you can do that sort of thing. That was kind of neat. So
Ken from Chicago wants to know if you would like virtual reality ASCII Street View glasses.
That would be awesome. You could call them the Matrix glasses. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be pretty cool.
I just see blonde, brunette,
X, Z,
Page,
D.
barrier.
Make life a lot simpler.
All right, let's see what's incoming.
Or a calendar.
All right, let's see what's on the calendar first.
Dragon Naturally Speaking 12 will be available tomorrow, August 3rd for $100. It's actually $99.99, but hey, let's round up.
Who's counting?
Also, tomorrow's the TechCrunch Facebook Ecosystem Crunch Up and Party in the peninsula of the Bay Area. And RIM is finally unveiling the 4G LTE tablet on August 9th. Who's excited? I heard a lot of just
sort of
silence there.
In Canada. It's going to be available in Canada.
But they're coming out with stuff. Good on you, RIM.
On to incoming.
Incoming message.
I got a phone call from somebody talking about phone calls. Very meta.
This is Mark out of Arkansas. In reference to the very last part of episode 555, I heard Tom chuckling as he was discussing the possibility of making a phone call. It still works in Glenwood, Arkansas. zip code 71943. In addition, if you use a dial phone, push button, dial your own phone number and wait, you can hear the switch go into party line mode.
Nice.
So get off my lawn, you long whippersnapper. Y'all have a good day, and thanks for the shows.
You can still send a telegram, too. By golly. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't call people. I don't make phone calls.
This is why I don't have a phone.
Hey,
I don't need it.
I've got a whole profile I'm going to do of my neighbor Skip, and this is exactly what he's always walking around. I posted a picture of him once. He's holding up his little flip phone, and it's like all taped together. And I'm like, Skip, what are you doing? Get a new phone. And he's like, no, I can't. Had AT&T even over here. It's like I can't make calls. I make phone calls. People who want to make phone calls on their phones. It's not that crazy. And I have to say, it is annoying that on the occasion that I actually do want to make a phone call, it doesn't matter what the phone is and it doesn't matter where I'm at. It's like I'm underwater. And I remember growing up, walking on lawns, having phones that had cords, and you could talk on them and you could hear people, and it was great. Yeah. And now it's like, what'd you say? What? So I think we deserve a little boost for the old phone quality and the ability to talk to each other on phones. So it'd be nice to see if that was a feature that came back.
You're not alone out there.
It's HD phone calls.
HD phone calls.
Right.
Quality like we used to have.
And we talked about yesterday that Nexus Q is infinitely delayed, but anybody who pre-orders is going to get a free one. Adam has a theory about it. He says maybe Google was expecting only a few Qs to be pre-ordered. After Google saw a reasonable amount of people pre-ordered the device, they stopped the pre-orders. And now with all the pre-order customers receiving a free Nexus Q, and everyone who attended Google I.O. has their Nexus Q, Google has a pretty sizable development team of beta testers for the Nexus Q. What is the possibility Google will relaunch the Nexus Q at a lower price point around November or December?
I think we would all hope that they would do that, but isn't that kind of I don't know, that just kind of seems like a backwards way to go about this. Hey, we've developed this great piece of hardware. We don't actually think you're going to get it, and we're going to give it to you anyway.
They let all those, but his point, Adam's point, is that all that people start hacking, because remember, it's hackable. Right. They come up with cool uses for it, and Google incorporates them into the Nexus Q and relaunches
It's the HP touchpad plan? Does he introduce it and cut it off?
Yeah.
Maybe. They just didn't, I don't think the pre-order sales were very strong. So it's a shelving thing.
Danny says no.
I keep joking that it's like 3 times the price for 1/3 the functionality of Apple TV or Roku. It's not. I just don't get it. I mean, I just don't get it for that price. It makes no sense. This is Google's ability to be pushing out a pure, simple streaming product, which Google TV was not, right? Google TV, of which I own 2, is this complicated, horrible product that doesn't actually let you watch TV as it was ever intended. And then you get something like a Roku for $60 that works beautifully. And Apple TV, which to me its biggest flaw was that it didn't have Hulu, just got it.
Yeah.
Just got it. If I'm Google and I'm looking at this stuff and I'm also looking at something like the Nexus 7 and I'm thinking we want to compete somehow in some way in here, I want to take the Nexus Q back and I want to turn it into a Roku, and I want to find a way to get it down to the Apple TV price, and I want it to be my Apple TV. And that's going to take a lot more engineering work. And I don't know what they're going to do about the price points or whatever. My understanding is, though, it's much more expensive because they wanted to build it all in the U.S. Is that right?
Well, I know that they say it's all built in the U.S., and that may definitely contribute to the price.
Built-in amplifier doesn't help either.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, or maybe they bring it back and they release 2 different Qs. You look at the Qs, you're like, did somebody at Google just have too much power? Okay, we're going to build it up. And maybe we come out with what's the other letter on the alpha? Q, W, X, Y, Z, the Nexus W, I don't know.
Nexus
and,
R.
and it's the lower. It still has the cool look. It doesn't have all the amplifier stuff in it or whatever, but it lets you stream television. That would be cool.
Got another email from Richard Gunther. This is in response to Amazon's new instant video iPad app that we spoke about on the show. And he says things aren't quite as great as you portrayed on yesterday's show. And he highlights 3 things that he does not like about this app. First of all, it doesn't work over AirPlay. It doesn't work over mirroring either. Apple's designed screen mirroring so it handles video playback the same way that you would if you were trying to send the video.
I know. I found that out last night myself.
So yeah, the app, as soon as you start playing a video, then it reverts to audio-only stream AirPlay. And that's obviously upsetting Richard with good reason. He says the second one, you can only stream video over Wi-Fi. If you've downloaded videos that you rented or owned, you can watch them without connectivity, but you can't stream or download videos over 3G or 4G or LTE or anything. It's particularly frustrating since competing apps like Netflix and Hulu Plus do. Finally, he says, you mentioned the Android tablets can just watch Amazon Instant Video through the browser. That's true, but not if you have a Nexus 7 or something that doesn't support Flash. No tablet running Android 4.1 or later will.
I will quibble with you here, Richard. The first 2 points are very good and things we discovered as well. But you can watch Amazon videos in the Dolphin browser with Flash installed. Eileen made it work on my Nexus 7.
It's not easy, but you can do it.
It's not, and I said through the Dolphin browser yesterday. But yeah, it's not like it's built in. You're right. Well, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thanks, everybody who submitted stories at our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com. And thank you, Danny Sullivan, for taking the time to join us today. Let folks know about Search Engine Land, where they can find it, what they can expect when what you guys are working on, all that stuff.
Sure. We're searchengineland.com, and anything that has to do with search engines, finding stuff on the web or search marketing, you'll locate it there. And our sister site is Marketing Land, where we cover anything that has to do with digital marketing. So check us out. It's thenames+.com.
I owe you all a great debt. Whenever there's a big story that's in your wheelhouse, I always turn to you. You have the best analyses out there, so I recommend it to everybody.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv. And you can call, leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. Back tomorrow with Darren Kitchen. We'll see you then.
Ha ha ha.